Hey Dustin, how's it going?
It's going really well. It's beautiful weather here in California.
Oh, brilliant. Well, look, I just want to say welcome to In Conversation. It's a real pleasure to have you on the podcast today, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to join us.
I'm happy to be here.
So, so you're based in California, and you're at California State University, is that right?
Yeah, California State University, Los Angeles. There are, I wish I should know how many California State universities there are in the state, but I think there's over a dozen. So
There's definitely a few.
Quite a substantial system they have here.
And what's going on? Is there anything exciting going on at the institution at the moment? Are you working on anything in particular? How's things going?
Well, it's a teaching institution, so I'm really invested in the students teaching and all of the duties that come along with being a professor at a teaching institution. Right now, I guess big news is this Prop 28, which was a bill that was passed recently, and it provides the state of California with over $1 billion in money that's directly going to art programs across the state. So they're really investing in elementary to high school education in the arts. So as a professor that works with pre-service students, this is a really a key time to really drive home the importance of becoming an art teacher, because there are lots of vacancies in the States.
Okay, well that is exciting news indeed. And you mentioned there, of course, that you're a teacher, and I noticed from your website that not only you're a teacher, you're also, of course, a researcher and an artist. And I was just wondering, which of those three came first for you?
I would definitely say the first is an artist. I've always created art in some way, ever since I was a little kid. I definitely don't consider myself a professional artist. It's something that you have to invest quite a bit of time and dedication to that craft. But art has always informed almost every aspect of my teaching and research. And that's, if I was going to say which came first, it would be the artist part.
And do you find, like, if you identify as an artist, a researcher, and a teacher, and you inhabit those three different roles, do you find that they're sort of sympathetic to each other, or do you often find yourself being pulled in different directions, that you want to create artwork, and maybe that does inform your research, but then you're pulled into teaching, or do you find that they sort of work in a collaborative fashion?
That's a great question. I really think if you have that drive inside of you to be an artist or to produce art, you always find the time. And that's the way it's always been for me ever since I became a teacher in a high school situation, all the way to my current position. Working in an art building or around other artists with art supplies, you always find some time to do something that interests you. And luckily, more recently I've been able to work in the ceramic studio in our art building, and that's given me some respite. And for me, through ceramics, anyways, right now, that's sort of my outlet.
I did see some of your work, and I think that's really interesting. I'm really glad that you're able to talk about that a little bit. But to take it all the way back, can you remember any of your formative experiences or interactions with art? Were these at home, at school, or was it through a teacher, or in a formal setting, maybe in a gallery? Can you remember what those early interactions were for you?
Reflecting on my past, I think art has always been interwoven in different ways. I was very lucky. I was born in Canada, in Toronto, and just by chance, where my parents had a house, there was a local school that was an arts-based school for elementary, and that really was a huge hook for me to appreciate the arts anyways, and to tap into that creative spirit. But then, I had family members that also were involved in the arts. One of my grandmothers was an interior designer, and one of my uncles is pretty well-known Canadian contemporary artist. So I've had influences throughout my life, and at home and at school.
It was almost fate, you could say, and that's an interesting kind of. I'm always interested to see how people find their way into the arts, and then how that maybe their love of the arts and art practice then translates into teaching and passing on their own experiences as well. And talking about those experiences a bit more when you were growing up, it sounds like you had some real influences from your own family, which is probably quite unique in a sense. But can you remember any particular artists or artworks that kind of grabbed you, or that maybe influenced your own work as a ceramicist?
Yeah, that's another great question. I would say that out of all the artists, Duchamp was a huge breaking point for me, or I don't know what the word would be right now, but his ready-mades and having conversations about what art can be, that whole sort of aha moment when I learned about him and his work, and the Dadaists and that whole era of time, that really sort of opened my mind and took some weight off my shoulders in terms of like the necessity to be able to draw the perfect hand or the face and things like that. And then just to be creative, to set problems for myself and to try to work through them, creative problems anyways. Yeah, that's in terms of ceramics. I've been fortunate to work with just local community artists, and I've made friends with quite a few, and I think that's where I've gotten a lot of my influence from, not necessarily professional or well-known ceramicists, but more through conversation and camaraderie, and like picking up different tips and tricks from other artists.
Fascinating. Thank you very much for sharing that as well. One of my favorite journals to work on from the Intellect stable is Visual Inquiry, the Journal of Learning and Teaching Art, which has been with us for more than a decade now, I think, and a really, really important and interesting journal founded by Jim Duchenne and a few others. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences of working with that journal? What was the research that you published there, and how was it working with that particular publication?
I know Jim on a personal basis. We've done a number of projects together, and I had this idea to put together a special issue, and I approached Jim, and he was enthusiastic, very positive. The process with the journal was fantastic. A lot of the work I handled on my own and then handed to him, so it might have been an easier task on his end, but it was really smooth, and I was able to make formatting suggestions that were taken up by the people at Intellect, and it was very enjoyable. So yeah, I had a lot of fun producing that.
With regards to that process, I know editing a journal it can be full of pitfalls and challenges. But is there any advice that you might give to anyone else who's looking to perhaps guest edit one of these peer-reviewed journals? It doesn't have to be an Intellect one, but just anything that you would, in hindsight, that you'd maybe pass on to a colleague or friend who is trying to embark on this same journey?
I would say organization is so important. I had a lot of control over this special issue, so I put out a call for the issue well in advance. I gave myself lots of time, so I didn't have to feel like there was a deadline I was rushing to meet. That was really important. And then I would say really factor in that you will need to go back to the authors a number of times for edits, and I went back to authors a few times before I even sent my final compiled special issue to Intellect, just to make sure that I was trying to catch everything that I could. So it is a lot of lots of emails back and forth, a lot, and really it's organization. So if I was going to suggest anything, it would be to really have a plan of action before you start anything that is that intensive.
I think that's a very good. It's a basic one that's often overlooked. So I think that's I think having some really good organizational skills and to really focus on that definitely is great advice. And I think the good thing about working with a journal like that that's established and has a solid editorial team and an international editorial board, and also like a journal tracking system and these processes in place, is at least there's always like some guidance and some I guess some lines to help you pull in the right direction. So there's definitely something to say for publishing with a journal that's nice and established like that. And if anyone's interested in finding out more about Dustin's special issue, I just would suggest take a look at intellectbooks.com, and you can find information about the special issue there if you just search for Visual Inquiry Journal of Learning and Teaching Art. And while we're talking about Jim Duchenne, I suppose we should give him another very brief I guess promotion, we could say, because his new book with Intellect is coming out in the next couple of weeks, which is a special book which focuses on the Tribal, the fashion brand, where he's working with graffiti artists, tattooists, all kinds of fascinating people related to Tribal, including Bobby Tribal himself. So that was going to be an interesting one. Again, very much an LA-based book, so interesting insights coming there soon. But let's move on and talk a bit about your own book, also published with Intellect as part of the Artwork Scholarship Series, which is a much bigger series that we've been working on for a few years now. But last year and this year, there's a wealth and depth of books coming out. And the series itself sort of invites debate on and provides an essential resource for transnational scholars engaged in creative research involving visual, literary, and performative arts. Approaches may include arts-based, practice-based, artography, and many other things as well. So it's quite a tremendous series in scope. Let's actually jump into your book now, and let's talk a little bit about that. So Living Histories, Global Conversations in Art Education, which is the first truly international text highlighting histories of art education with contributions from over 30 scholars based in 18 countries. Sounds like quite a feat in itself just to pull that off and to edit such a volume. But of course, it's part of Intellect's Artwork Scholarship Series, which has been going for some time now, but we're going to see a lot more books coming out over the next couple of years. And indeed, your book was a really important part of the initial series that was first released. So can you tell us a bit, first of all, about how you heard about the series and how you came to find a home for your own research among those titles?
Thanks very much for that question. I think the biggest connection is with Dr. Anita Sinner, who's the lead editor of this series, and she happens to be, or was, my supervisor at university to get my PhD. So I've maintained connection with Anita for a very long time now. And she's, a great partner in doing research and producing. We've produced 2 books together now. It was pretty a pretty natural fit. Anita is my co-author on this book, and was a real godsend, I guess you could say. The level of quality that she produces in her research is in my opinion unparalleled. So it was a pleasure to work with her again, and and then to be included in her series is also another honor. So I guess for this book, Living Histories, we were really thinking about making sure that it really represented as much of an international title as possible. So we really went out of our way to source art education scholars that were from countries all over the world. So that was a key element another major point for this specific book, instead of producing something that was just a very straightforward traditional history book, we wanted to incorporate elements of arts-based theory and really try to put out a call that would engage people's imaginations. And we ended up getting a number of really creative responses, everything from poetry to visual journals. It was a real pleasure to have some kind of freedom when creating this book, and to be able to incorporate these arts-based interludes in amongst new histories that we've asked authors to produce for us.
Got you. Okay. And when you mentioned freedom, what were your goals when you set about editing this volume with your co-editor and the series editor Anita Sinner? Did you fulfill these goals and expectations, or did the book, take a different trajectory once you started the editing process? Because it sounds like you received many fascinating contributions from many different disciplines within the arts.
Yeah, we did, and it was difficult in a way because we had a lot of choice in terms of what we could include and not include. And then we had big decisions on how we wanted to structure the book. So figuring that out was quite a undertaking in itself. And then, once we started to engage with the individual chapters, there were all kinds of different issues that popped up. English being a huge factor. Scholars from around the world, it required that much more time to engage with authors one-on-one to make sure that Anita and myself were actually understanding some of the intricacies that were offered in these articles. And then we worked with authors to do some editing.
Yeah, that's a common challenge that we kind of encounter at Intellect as well. Working with so many different international scholars, so important to have those perspectives, but it can often be a real challenge, especially for the editor at the helm of the volume. So fair play to both you and Anita for bringing in such a wonderful volume, covering so many interesting and different contexts as well. Talking about those international contexts, there was something I was interested in, was whether you encounter a lot of the same approaches and methods internationally from global artists and art teachers and things of that nature, or whether that these contexts are all very different and people were using different methods and different approaches internationally, or whether there was kind of a shared language, or whether you encountered all these different perspectives.
Yeah, that's a important question to ask. I've seen it, like, standing back as a scholar who isn't as involved as Anita is in terms of like an international outreach. I can really see how the work that's been done at Concordia University and UBC in arts-based research, how that has influenced scholars in Spain and Croatia and a variety of other places in Europe. And it's encouraging and fascinating to me how some of these ideas have been taken and changed to look at these issues in different ways. And I don't know if it's just because of the artfulness that these scholars have, or if it's the actual place that has allowed them to see things in a different way. So that's going to be something that I don't know if anybody can really decide on. But in terms of like the root ideas of arts-based research, I can really see that transnational back and forth of research that's done in Europe and different parts of the world, and how that's connected to what has happened in Canada. In the States, they arts-based research, I don't see it as a huge area. I see that there are lots of authors and scholars that are trying to engage in that form of practice, but I think it's well known that Canada is the source of it all. So it's interesting. Plus, in the States, there's so many ingrained systems, and it's very hard to make changes until there's new generations that come through academia. So, and it's all these growing pains. That's what was happening in Canada as well. But there were enough scholars interested in art space that got into the system, and I'm one of the, I guess, benefactors of that, because my dissertation was an arts-based dissertation in history. And if I didn't have Anita as my lead supervisor, I don't think that I would be able to have pulled off a dissertation like the one that I had.
I think you raised a very good point there, and I think the geography question is quite important here. I think Canada being at the center of the book series through Anita Sinner and Rita Irwin is really important, and I think that it does allow for these international perspectives to kind of percolate because of Canada's position within this kind of scholarship globally. So it's interesting you mentioned those things about the US, and I see you're obviously over there trying to infiltrate and to try and bring in some of these perspectives, which must be a challenge in itself. But I was wondering as well, with regard to the future of this kind of pedagogy and this kind of arts-based research and the kind of these discussions and the discussions that came out of Living Histories, what do you think might be, what's going to be next? What are going to be the big topics? Or what are you kind of like aware of within the field that that's going to be discussed internationally over the next few years? Are there any things that you can envision becoming maybe a topic for one of the books in a couple of years within the series? What are the hot topics now?
Well, I think right now and in the past, I would say about 5 years, there's been a huge push for social justice in art education. Remarkably, I think Canada is really at the forefront, because in the United States, they're focusing on equity, diversity, and inclusion, ED&I. But in Canada, they're focusing on equity, diversity, and inclusion, and decolonization, which is a huge topic, and it's very central in all the universities in Canada right now. And as a matter of fact, the latest call for a special issue in the journal Studies in Art Education, which is really one of our key journals in the field, the special issue is all about decolonization. So that's I think where we're going to go. Decolonization is not a new topic. We've heard this many times. It's just instead of a surface examination just saying it, it'll be very interesting to see how scholars engage with that, especially within art education. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to see how this edition of decolonization in this whole realm of social justice plays out.
Well, now we know what's sort of next for the field and for the series. I think that you're dead right. I think these topics around decolonization are going to open up some really interesting debate, and will definitely be focused on through many books and things that Intellect will be producing. But I think within the context of art education and art histories, this series is going to produce some really interesting takes on that. But what's next for you? What are you working on? Anything exciting? What's going on in your purview at the moment?
Oh, there are a number of things that are percolating in the background. I'm hopefully going to be starting a new book with Davis Publications, and it's going to be a teacher practitioner book. So with lesson plans and information, but it's all going to be about historical practices in art education. Art teachers from K to 12, they're constantly using history as a theme in their class. They're doing a variety of things. It could be from going to graveyards and doing rubbings of stones, and then researching past histories, creating new histories, to talking about public monuments and all of the controversies that are happening around taking down monuments. So these are all amazing inroads for students to really engage with the world around them. And there really isn't anything out there that really focuses on historical practices. So that's going to be a big chunk of time that I'll be devoting to that. I have another book that's very close to being ready to go to print, and that's based on my dissertation. So it'll be a history of Central Technical School. There are a few other things, but I think those are the main timekeeper takers for me right now.
Well, and if people want to check in from time to time and see where you are with these publications, and of course all your other work as both artist, teacher, and researcher, would your website be the best place for them to go and check out?
Yes, I do my best to check in whenever possible. There is one more thing that just came to mind that I think I should mention. There is a new historical special interest group through the National Art Education Association, and I'm co-chair in that, and we're putting on some amazing different presentations at the national convention, and there'll be a variety of interesting and different initiatives that will be coming out of that group. So it's worthwhile to share that information, so people interested in the history of art education should check it out.
Definitely, and I think so. That's that's NAEA, is it? The National Association
for Art Education,
and
the actual interest group is history and historiography in art education.
People should check out INSEA as well, who are supporting the book series by helping us promote it and build awareness as well. And of course, a number of the members of INSEA are involved in the book series. So I definitely would recommend that. These are both great associations for finding out more about all these key debates and topics. And of course, how the field will progress over the next few years, whether it be around decolonization or new international perspectives. Any final thoughts you might have?
No, I've really enjoyed this talk, and thank you very much for your time and willingness to promote the book. I'm sure that Anita would love to put in her 2 cents as well, so feel free to reach out to her. I'm sure you are.
Well, I can confirm that we have an interview lined up with Anita and Rita, so there'll be a number of podcasts that focus specifically on topics around the book series, which again is Artwork Scholarship, International Perspectives in Education, which is a book series published by Intellect, and you can find out a lot more information on our website. But if you want to find out more about Dustin specifically, then do check out his website. If you just put in Dustin Garnet into Google, that'll bring up all that information for you. And again, if you go to Intellect's website, you can find more information about Dustin's special guest edited issue of our journal, Visual Inquiry, Journal of Learning and Teaching Art, which is a really fascinating take. And the other thing is you can download some free articles and things like that from the website as well. So do go and check that out. And of course, Living Histories, Global Conversations in Art Education, edited by Dustin and Anita, is now available from all good bookshops and from intellectbooks.com. So do check that out and do find out more, and just keep up to date with these fascinating topics and discussions and these different international perspectives, which I have to say the book does such a wonderful job of presenting. So congratulations on what is a wonderful addition to an already wonderful and important series, which is only going to gain, I think, more potency over the coming year and years to come. So thank you again for being part of it, and thank you for your time today, Dustin. Much appreciated.
Thank you, James.